All right. So, with social media, you can treat that like your own database or like an additional database. So, as you're building your command, which is our CRM, like we've talked about before, you can also focus on social media as a way to stay connected with people. Your social media profiles should share that you are in real estate. So anybody at any time can go look at a social media profile and say, oh, okay, Chris is in real estate. That's cool. And then that way, if they think about you with real estate, they can reach out. I have more people reach out to me, or I'll come across them in our lives, whether it be at the gym or at a restaurant or something like that, and they'll say something like, "Man, it looks like you're really busy. It looks like real estate's going really well for you." And they don't like anything, they don't comment on anything. I don't even know they're seeing my content, and yet I've created that visual of I'm in real estate and I'm being successful. That can go a long way, even if you're just sharing fellow agents' listings. They associate that with you're busy. Most people that are outside of real estate do not understand the nuances of real estate. So, what I mean by that is if I have a new listing and I share open house Sunday 2 to 4, and Nicole is hosting it, and Nicole shares that, most of the people on her social media are going to look at that and go, oh, Nicole got a new listing. That's sweet. That's awesome. I'm going to support it. They're not going to read between the lines and understand that Austin listed it or Eden Properties listed it and Nicole's hosting it as an open house. So you can create this perception of being an expert. And that's one of the beauties to being at Keller Williams. We do a lot of that kind of cross pollination. And our culture is built on sharing. So I'm never going to complain about you sharing one of my listings because it's more advertising and it's free. So do it. Same thing. Now, if you share a testimonial about me, that's a little weird. That might not get you the same amount of traffic. So you'll use a little bit of filter there. But when it's things that can be shared or worthwhile, share it. Same thing with like video. Like if I do a video talking about why it's important to buy now and not wait, the cost of waiting, so to speak, you can share that and then add your own caption to it. Hey, this is my coach in the market center. He's always putting good content out there. I'm excited to have such a great support cast. This is part of one of the reasons why I'm with Keller Williams, and then share it. So it can be stuff simple where you don't necessarily have to create the content yourself. You can rely on some of the content that's out there and share it and then add your nuance or your 2 cents to it that will make your algorithm and the people in your database connect with you. One of the things we're going to talk about at the end too is a way to trick the algorithm, which means your stuff is going to show up to more people because that is the biggest hurdle to overcome in social media. I myself am currently struggling with it. I put out a lot of content. I post on social media almost every single day, including hundreds of videos a year, and it gets seen by the same 10 people. And so I'm working on how can I get this seen by more than 10 people? And there's tricks to that. So we're going to talk about it at the end. All right, let's dive in. So, according to Gary Keller, our famous fearless leader, achievers always work from a clear sense of priority. A clear sense of priority. This is from his book, The One Thing. If you have not read The One Thing, I highly recommend it. Matter of fact, I would recommend The One Thing before I'd recommend Millionaire Real Estate Agent because The One Thing can apply to anything in your life. It's also shorter and an easier read, and it's super important. In a nutshell, The One Thing talks about 80% of your results come for 20% of your activities. So, what would it look like if you did more than the typical 20% of your activities? In other words, lead generation drives our business more than anything else. So, what would it look like if we spend more time lead generating? We'd have more business. The rest of the stuff follows suit. Good question, Chris. Chris says, do we have unspoken permission to share listings by anyone in the market center, or should we always ask permission from the listing agent? I would recommend a best practice to just run it by the listing agent. I can speak on behalf of most of the agents in our market center and say they're going to say, yes, of course, no problem. However, it's always good to do it up front just to build that kind of rapport with that listing agent. Consider this my permission, though. If you see anything on Eden Properties or my personal page, feel free to share it. All right. As I mentioned, today we're talking about social media. I'm calling this Social Media 2.0 because we did one previously where we talked about the different platforms. That is recorded and on the YouTube channel. Go back and watch it. Today, we're talking about what you can be posting and how that can impact your business. This is kind of a review of what I just mentioned. Every platform has their own popular demographic or client avatar or type of client that would be frequenting those platforms. There are four of the most popular in real estate, although TikTok is an honorable mention. So, as I mentioned previously, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Those are the four big ones. Now, YouTube is considered a search engine. It's not really a social media platform, although it's treated that way. You can still engage with people and that sort of thing. What I like about YouTube is it's owned by Google. And so if you build a YouTube channel and you're popular on YouTube and you're SEO optimized, you're going to show up better on Google. I can speak to that with some validity because it's happened in my business. Those of you that know, my father is in real estate. His name is Mark Austin Highfield. My name is Austin Highfield. That gets a little confusing sometimes. And yet, because of my YouTube channel, I've overtaken him on Google. He's been doing it a lot longer. He sells a lot more houses than me. I show up first because of my YouTube channel. He also has a YouTube channel. Mine's just better. And so you can build a lot of foot traffic with that. And it doesn't take a lot of reinventing the wheel. Now, your YouTube channel should improve. If you look at my early videos, they ain't that great. If you look at my videos more recently, they're a little polished, a little nicer because I'm getting more comfortable on camera and I've started bringing in some editing tools. Eventually, I'd like to get to the point where I can hire a videographer and they do it all for me. And all I have to do is show up and talk. I'm not there yet because that's expensive, but we'll get there. The point being, you don't start with perfect, edited, curated videos. The point is to get content out there. We'll talk about some video tips here in a little bit because I think video is the new hack or the new superpower to real estate and social media. So we'll get to that here in a few slides. All right. Let's talk about a content calendar. Lynn asked SEO optimized. Sorry, I missed that chat. SEO optimized stands for search engine optimization. What that means is your content is going to auto-populate amongst other searches. Google, for example, wants to see certain keywords. They want to see a title that explains what the video is going to be about. Don't make a title real estate market update and then just talk about real estate. It would be more effective to say July 2025 Richmond real estate market update and be super specific and then talk about what's going on in the market today. You don't always want to timestamp videos. What I mean by that is where you share content, and this is for any content really. But if you're going to be repopulating content on different accounts, you don't always want to timestamp it. So for example, I don't want to quote what interest rates are today because that can change. Probably. Yeah, so YouTube channels will get more traffic if you're SEO optimized. You can also run it through, there's different websites out there or filters out there that will tell you how optimized you are. I don't have a list in front of me with all of them, but if you're interested in YouTube, reach out to me. I'll get those to you. One of the sites that I use is a company called Opus. They do AI editing of my videos, but when I record the video and upload it, it will tell me, it'll grade on an A through F scale how good certain elements of the video are. So it'll say your hook, which we'll talk about a hook here in a second, is an A. Your title is an A minus. Your content or your caption or your description is a B. And so if it's not an A, how can I improve it? And I'll work on ways to improve it. Talk more about video here a little bit, but here's a sample content calendar. This is actually the content calendar that I use with an exception of one thing. Hold on. The difference between this and mine, my Monday is not a market Monday. It is a motivation Monday or a mindset Monday. That is because I'm a coach. So I typically share something related to mindset or motivation on Mondays. This may or may not be related to real estate. It can usually be applied in all areas of your life. Typically, it is faith-based. On Monday. Tuesday, I share a client review or a testimonial. Wednesday, I do a poll. Thursday, I do a video. And Friday, I do something going along that Friday or that weekend in our local market. We're going to talk about each of these in detail, but this is just a sample. Now, I like alliteration because it makes it easy to remember. So market Monday, Tuesday, testimonial. Thursday is video, but it may be Thursday tips and tricks. And that's the theme of my video. So every week I'm doing a short form video about a tip for real estate. Here's a tip: talk to a lender before you start house shopping so you know your budget is, and then talk about the reasons why that's important. It doesn't have to be reinventing the wheel. It can be content that seems obvious, especially to those of us in real estate, and yet they're not always front of mind or top of mind for people that are going to be engaging in that content, meaning the general public. So let's dive in. Monday market. What's going on in your local market? The more local you can be, the better. And what I mean by that is if you can share an update to Chesterfield County as opposed to all of Richmond, that's better if you live in Chesterfield. If you live in Hanover, do one to Hanover. If you live in a certain neighborhood that has a lot of traffic in there, like I have an agent friend of mine that lives in Wyndham that all he talks about is Wyndham. I have another agent friend of mine that lives in Magnolia Green. All he talks about is Magnolia Green. And then he's doing video content when he's on the golf course at Magnolia Green. And he becomes known as the Magnolia Green agent. There is no such thing as going too local or too hyper local. That is the idea behind a farm. Now, social media and video is slowly replacing the old school methods of farming. We are seeing less and less direct mail. It used to be you mail something every single month to your farm. Now, those agents that farm at a high level mail something 4 times a year. Then they do an event or a get together 4 times a year. And then they do like a pop by or something else 4 times a year. So the direct mail is a lot less. They also have a closed Facebook group for everybody in that neighborhood. And they're interacting on social media and on different websites like Nextdoor within their community rather than just mailing. Tina Morris, who used to be with our team, did a very good job of this. She farms a neighborhood called Tarrington. Now, the beauty of Tarrington is the average sales price in there is over $1 million. So you don't have to sell that many of them to make a good return on your investment. However, she gets a lot of business from it, so much so where they have expanded in a couple of neighborhoods around Tarrington. So that is her base of business. So she is hyper local to that Robius corridor of about 3 or 4 neighborhoods, but she gets probably 1 in 4 listings that come up in those neighborhoods. So if you're doing 10, 15 deals at $1 million, that's a pretty good business. You're probably making $300,000 a year. And she's focusing on 3 or 4 neighborhoods, one of which she lives in. And so it makes the commute to work appointments pretty easy. Matter of fact, I showed one of those listings over the weekend, and she lives so close that she went by the house, the vacant house. She went by the house before we got there and turned on all the lights, even though it was a vacant house. And I was like, Tina, you make too much money and sell too many houses to be doing this for your listings. She was like, I live right here. And I was like, that's fair. And it was just kind of funny the way that that kind of came about. So we'll talk more about farming on another coaching call or training. There's a lot to it. I don't want to spend too much time going into farming, but that is the idea of going hyper local. You should also tell stories. One of the most common ways of educating or sharing content is through storytelling. I like it because it personalizes the info that you're trying to get across and it establishes yourself as an expert. If you watch my videos, probably 75% of them feature a story. When I'm on appointments with clients, I will use a story to get a point across. So for example, we're concerned about selling our house before we know where to go next. Well, have you heard of off-market listings or office exclusives? We just did one last month and it's closing this month where we sold their house without ever going on the market. What? You can do that? Tell me about that. Okay, well, here's what happened. I met with Rachel, blah, 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 blah. And I used a story to educate the point that I'm trying to get across. Lynn, what you got?
Do you have that story in one of your videos, the off-market thing? Because I'm trying to do a referral and I need to get that point across.
Not yet. I am probably recording that one this week.
Okay, so
it'll be up. Yeah, you'll see it. There are certain stories or certain cases that I don't share until I know it's going to close. So that one had a little bit of a bumpy home inspection. And so I wanted to make sure that we got through the finish line or through the inspection repairs and negotiations to make sure we were going to close before I was like, here, let me tell you about this great off market we did. And then it never sold off markets. And then I had to put it back on the market. What you got? Another question?
Yeah, so can you stay for like 5 minutes after and talk to me about that specifically?
I should be able to. It depends on when
Okay,
we
thank
finish.
you.
I have to leave at 10.
Right, fine,
I have
thank
at
you.
10 o'clock. But okay, so let's keep it moving so that we can have time at the end to talk questions. You can also talk about rates. Now, when I say rates, I don't mean quote what the interest rate is. However, sharing something like rates improved, they're at the lowest they've been all year. Reach out to me for more details is a great Market Monday type of update. You can also share things about certain programs. So, for example, when we have the FHLB grant, which is a first time or a community hero grant that some lenders offer, or when we have a special VA grant or program available, you can just talk about the VA loan. It doesn't really need to be over exemplified. It's special in and of itself. Share something about the benefits of using a VA loan. And then MOFR stands for make offer for immediate response. This is a lot of what I post. So, for example, we ran a contest in June for our clients where if they listed their house and went on the market in June, we gave them $1,000 off their commissions. Now, I didn't necessarily put this on social media, but I might say something on social media like, hey, we have a special going on this month for our sellers to save more money in their pockets. Reach out so I can share the info with you. And then when they reach out, I would tell them that. Here, give me 1 second. I'm going to go yell at my kids real quick. Okay, sorry about that. They were screaming at each other and it was getting progressively louder. A MOFR or make offer for immediate response is to generate response or have somebody raise their hand and say, "Ooh, I'm interested in that." A hero program, which is another thing that I personally do, but it's popular out there. The company that originally made it famous is a company called Homes for Heroes. Essentially, it's discounts off your commission for first responders or community heroes. That is another type of make offer for immediate response. The offer is a discount on your commission. The immediate response is raise your hand to buy or sell with me because you're a hero. You could tie it to, I'm looking at Chris on the screen, so you could tie it to where you work. Hey, any teacher that works at can get a discount, or any teacher at Manchester High School, I'm paying for your appraisal if you buy a house with me in the next 12 months. It's a $500 credit, but you don't have to talk about the numbers. Talk about you're paying for their appraisal and why that matters. Your appraisal is a third party to come in to guarantee the value of the house you're buying. So it's protecting your investment. I care so much about the quality of the home that my clients are buying that I'm going to cover that for them. And then these are 3 resources that you have to get updates on the market that you can then share. Keeping Current Matters is a good one. You should all go follow their Instagram. You don't have to pay for their pro account. They're going to probably advertise that to you. But you don't have to pay for it. They have a free membership and a free option. They are actually headquartered in Richmond. So they do content all over or market updates all over, but they will also share a lot of hyper specific Richmond local content, which is helpful. David Childers is the CEO of that and is a brilliant human. And he does a lot of collaboration with Tom Ferry, who is arguably the #1 real estate coach in America. I say arguably because Brian Buffini and him kind of go back and forth with that #1 spot. Brian Buffini has since rebranded to be a business coach, not just real estate specific, which is essentially pushed Tom into the #1 spot. But Brian would be the #1 business coach in America. So Brian Buffini could also be on here. Tom Ferry does a lot with like utilizing AI and social media. So it can, if you're interested in that kind of thing, he has a podcast that is helpful to listen to. And then your 90-second market update that comes from Kim. Now, what I would recommend is don't just save and share the 90-second market update. I would read it and understand it and turn it into 3 videos or 4 videos, depending on how many bullet points are on there. So, like the one that came out recently was about the big, beautiful bill that passed that changed a lot of different things when it comes to taxes and homeowners. Now, Lynn Ann can agree to this probably more than most because she used to work in accounting. We should not be the ones that are sharing tax advice to our clients. So I would not just automatically share that post and go, here's a bunch of stuff about your taxes. If you own a house, or if you can write off this, or if you can write off that. Rather, I would turn it into a video or a post where I would say something along the lines of recent changes in legislation have given more power to homeowners. You now have additional tax benefits that you already had before that are increasing, and other ways to deduct more on your taxes. Reach out if you need help. Don't give them all the details. You don't want to be the message when it comes to not real estate. I was taught at a young age by one of my early coaches, you want to be the messenger of the message. You don't want to be the message if it's not real estate. Another kind of funny way of referring to this is, I don't know how many about you guys, but I get a lot of like email newsletters from other agents all over the country because I'm referral partners with them. And I could not tell you how many times I see like tips on your garden or recipes or home improvement tips. Home improvement's a little bit of a gray area because we kind of work in that realm. But if you're not a contractor or a gardener or a chef, I don't want to hear a recipe from you. And I don't want to hear about your garden tips because you're not a gardener. You're a real estate expert. Now, if you want to tell me how certain landscaping can increase the curb appeal of the value of your house, that's different. So position yourself. This is important for social media in general. Position yourself as the expert for your area. Going back to the one thing, you are a real estate expert. Your content should refer that. Now, it's not to say all we do is post about real estate. Humanize yourself as well. And yet, don't share expert advice or messages regarding things that you are not an expert in. And Katrin could probably speak to tax stuff too. I forgot about that. But at the same time, if you were looking at social media as a way to get more real estate business, don't confuse the two. I have another friend of mine. This is the kind of, see, storytelling to get points across. I have another friend of mine who's an agent and she sells insurance, like property insurance. If you go to her Facebook profile, I can't tell which one she does currently. Now, I personally know she does both, but some of the time she's posting farmers insurance stuff, and some of the time she's sharing listings from her team, and some of the stuff she's sharing, I just closed this buyer, and it's confusing. I had another friend on my team that worked with me that kind of did the same thing. He was selling cars and selling houses. He looked at it as like, I can sell anything. I'm like, that's great. You're also confusing the market because they don't know whether to come for you for a Tahoe or a house. And I want them to come to me for a house. And if they need its car, still come to me and I'll refer you to somebody else to buy you to sell you the car. So you can still be that known as that connector, but we want to be known as a real estate expert. Thoughts on the market Monday? I got a couple chats. Hold on. Yes, you can adapt for the heroes. So for example, my hero program, I don't give a percentage of my commission. I give a flat fee. And part of why I do that is because a percentage of the commission can change from client to client. And I don't like that. So if Nicole buys a $1 million house and Chris buys a $400,000 house, Nicole's getting a much bigger credit because it's a percentage of the commission. They're both heroes. I'd rather say you both get the same hero credit for being a hero. And if you're buying a bigger house, that's great. We have other tools we can use to work discounts and that sort of thing. It's more of a fair housing protection for myself. I want to treat every client equally, regardless of what price they're worth. Let's talk Tuesdays. So Tuesdays are testimonial days. Now, in the early stages, if you don't have a client reviewed for yourself, you can give one. This is where you would review or suggest a local business or a preferred vendor. My favorite way to do this is to type out a review on my page and tag that business. It will show up on their page, it will show up on your page, and it'll cross-pollinate each other. You can also go on their Google page and leave a review and then share that on your own page and tag them. And I would do this every single week on Tuesday. Eventually they're going to reach out or they're going to start leaving you reviews, even if you haven't sold anything. I have reviews on my profile from people that I have not sold a house to, whether I've coached them or they're a vendor partner or they left a review to enter a contest before I sold them a house. I put one under contract yesterday. They left me a review last month because they were trying to win a Blackstone. Now I'm going to make them leave me another review now that we sold them a house. Google reviews are the most important because they auto-populate everywhere and they help your search optimization. Number two, I hate that I'm saying this, but it would be Zillow. Those of you that know me, I hate Zillow. And yet it is important because Zillow will also populate on Google. Now, included in that would be like a realtor.com. Zillow is just more popular right now. Now, because you're a licensed realtor, you automatically have a free profile on Zillow and Realtor. You may have to make it, but you have one tied to your license. So if you have not done so already, go to realtor.com and go to zillow.com, find the agent hub, and create your own profile. I will make that one of our to-dos for a group coaching session in person tomorrow. This is what tag wherever possible means. If you're giving a review to a local business, you want to tag them. That's how they show up on your feed and you show up on theirs. You also want to interact with all of the reviews that are left for you. So if somebody leaves me a review on Google, I reply and I thank them for the review, and I will probably say something about how working with them went or about their house. Now, I'm not going to give the address out, but I might say like, so excited for you and your new home. Enjoy that pool. And then Facebook would be the third one. Now, Facebook is only if you have a business page. I currently have a business page for our team, and we have 0 reviews on it because the business page was made 3 months ago. But I have 64 reviews on Google, which was also made a year ago because Google and I were in a fight for 2 years. They deleted my page, and I had to remake it. I have like 30 on Zillow. Yes, on Google. Google deleted my page. I had to rebuild it. And so we're working. Now, Jackson, who many of you know, he and I have a contest to get to 100 Google reviews by the end of the year, or really it's whoever's there first. The loser not only has to pay for a round of golf, they also have to donate $100 to a charity of the other person's choosing. I don't like losing. So if you want to go leave me a Google review about how great of a coach I am, I'd appreciate that. That is also why I do so many contests on monthly, because I am incentivizing Google reviews. Now, Google, it's a little bit of inside baseball here. Google rewards certain thresholds of number of reviews. So what I mean by that is when you have 0 reviews, Google's like, cool, it's a business, we don't really care. Once you get to about 20 to 25 reviews, they're like, okay, this person's starting to establish some traction. If somebody searches real estate and looks for any keywords that this business features, we might show them as one of the options. It might be further down the page, but you're going to see it. Once you hit 50, they go, okay, this person's starting to gain some real traction. They're obviously a well-respected and liked business. And these are 5-star reviews, but by the way, I don't mean total reviews. Once you get 50 5-star reviews, they start to push you up the page. So now you're on the first page of results for Richmond real estate, and you're starting to climb the rankings. After you get to 75, again, more foot traffic. And once you hit 100, they're like, cool, you have the keys to the kingdom. You can do whatever you want to do. This is for real estate specifically. If you are a business that gets a lot more reviews, so for example, home inspectors, they are typically higher thresholds. But realtors, for whatever reason, don't push Google reviews as much, probably because we're on sites like Zillow and Facebook getting reviews there instead. And so the thresholds are much lower. I have seen it happen in my business. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a lot more prevalent on Google now than ever. It's because of 2 things, YouTube and Google reviews. I now have people call me out of the blue and say, hey, I'm looking to buy a house. And I'm like, great. Where did you hear about me? And he said, Google. And I'm like, okay. That's all I need to know. And then we'll work with them. Now, it doesn't happen often yet, but it's coming because we're building that Google profile up. Also, if you leave a Google review the rest of this week, we're still running a contest. We're giving away a solo stove, one of the big ones, which is a smokeless fire pit, which is really cool. The second place prize, I believe, is a gift card to Amazon, and the third place prize is a gift card to a restaurant. So if you leave a Google review, you get an entry. Or no, you get 2 entries for your Google review this month. You get 1 entry if you subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you've already subscribed to the YouTube channel, I can't help you. Guess you got to leave me a Google review. You can also send me a referral for 3 entries. Although if you have a buyer or seller referral, work it yourselves. Don't send it to me unless you are too busy. But that's our contest. So that is another type of social media that I can post. Now, usually Fridays, which we'll get to here in a minute, are where I would post stuff about a giveaway. All right, let's talk Wednesdays. Wednesday is one of my favorite days of the week because I do a poll related to real estate. This is one of the #1 ways I get engagement. I got 2 buyer leads last week from a poll that I did that had 4 responses, meaning 4 people responded to the poll and 2 of them turned into buyer leads. They're probably buying a house later this year, but they turned to buyer leads. Hold on. This is why I don't take work calls from home. So your poll should be something real estate related. I'm going to talk about examples here in a minute. These typically go on your social media stories, so you're going to have to check back to see who's responding. But the key is you want to connect or direct message with everybody that answers the poll, regardless of what the response or answer is. So I'll talk about more of that in a second. This is going to boost your engagement in several ways. A, when they respond to your poll, it shows the algorithm on social media that they like what you're posting and they're going to respond to it. And they're going to start putting more of your content in their profile. And B, it boosts your engagement when you direct message them. So again, same algorithm trick. Now, some of my favorite poll examples that have gotten a lot of traction when it's real estate specific, and I'm going to talk about piggybacking in a second, but it's not those. It's things like, should you buy first or sell first if you have to do both to get a new home? What I mean by that is, if you're looking to buy a new home, is it better to sell your current house first or buy or figure out where you're going next first? The real answer, it depends. However, you get a lot of fun responses. And you can then connect with them by saying, okay, you said buy first. Tell me why, or tell me what you mean. Well, you don't want to sell your house and have nowhere to go. Correct. Do you know that it takes a lot of folks, they have to sell their house in order to qualify for financing? Well, can't you do a contingent offer or buy it based on selling your house? Yes, but that is not as strong of an offer because you're contingent. Somebody else can come in non-contingent and beat you. And so you're having a realistic conversation with somebody. It's not necessarily to get leads, but it is to educate them. And then when they need the lead or when they need to move, they're going to come back to you because they're going to go, oh, Chris was super helpful in explaining how selling and buying at the same time works. I got to go to him. Now, piggybacking on previous polls is really effective because if you start to see people respond, and this is where I got these buyer leads from. If you start to see people respond to your poll every week or back to back to back, you know they're engaged in your content. So these were the exact 3 polls that I did 3 weeks in a row. Number 1 was, would you buy a house if rates were lower? I had 4 people respond. Maybe, actually, that one I think I had like 10 people respond. And every single one of them said yes. Shocker. Then I said, do you know what rates are? And I gave 5%, 6%, 7%, or other. And every single person put 7%, which means every single person was wrong. So I got to message everybody and say, nope, they're not that high. And depending on your loan type, they may be as low as 5.8 or 5.9 or 6.1. Are you thinking about buying a house? And that's where the 2 buyer leads came from. One of them said, yeah, I'm just saving. I think I'm going to be closer to the fall. The other one said, I don't know yet. I'm just focusing on saving money and improving my credit right now. And we're getting coffee in a week or two to talk about the process. Then I said, what would you consider a good interest rate? Now, anybody that said 2%, I blocked. I'm just kidding. But I told them they're crazy and we're never going to see that again. Despite what you hear in the news about rates should be 1 to 2% from Donald Trump, that's not going to happen. Historic average for interest rates is like 6.7, meaning we're at or below historic average. I had a funny conversation with a client yesterday. I was showing a house and the listing agent was present because it was one of those type of houses. And we were talking about the market in the 70s and 80s when this house was built. Interest rates were above 20% in the 80s. And my comment was, and people today want to complain about 6. I wasn't around in the 80s in real estate or at all. I was born in 92. And yet, I know there are previous markets where rates have been double or triple what they are today. I have a funny saying that I like to say a lot when clients bring that up. It's not the market, it's the marketing. Homes will always sell. It's just a matter of how are they priced and how good are they marketed to. The reason why homes are expensive today is not because of interest rates. Controversial take, and yet it's true. The reason why homes are expensive today is because prices are up, insurance are up, interests are up, and taxes are up. When you have all 4 up, things are going to be more expensive. Now, even if interest rates came down, the other 3 are still up, which have greater impact on your monthly payment than your interest rates do, which means it's still going to be expensive. If interest rates were to fall to 1% today, monthly payments would still be expensive. The difference is most of your monthly payment would be going to principal. So you're going to build equity faster. That's really all interest rates are impacting today. It's not what's making the payments expensive. Now, we don't necessarily want to go say that on social media. It's like things are expensive because of X, Y, Z. What we can say, another good poll is, do you know what impacts your payment the most? Number 1, price. Number 2, taxes. Number 3, insurance. Number 4, interest rates. I can almost guarantee you most people are going to select interest rates, and they're wrong. Number 1 is price. Number 2 is taxes. Number 3 is insurance. Number 4 is interest rates. It used to be interest rates were number 3, but because taxes have gone up so much over the last 3 or 4 years, if you own a house, you know what I'm talking about. But because interest rates have gone up so much the last few years, or taxes have gone up so much the last few years, they are now impacting payments more than interest rates. I have a client that said in the last 3 years, his taxes have gone up or raised his monthly payment like $400 in 3 years. That's more than what interest rates did. So you can position yourself as an expert of that. This will also create a little bit of a sense of urgency, which is going to make people want to buy now versus wait, which is the whole point. Now, again, we respond or we reach out to each of these people. Now, what I don't do is if they say, do you know what rates are? And they say 7%, I don't reply and go, wrong. Like that would be funny, but at the same time, I want to be helpful or come from value. Same thing with what would you consider a good interest rate? If they say 1 to 2%, I say, yeah, if I would love that. And yet, do you know what would happen if interest rates fell that low? And they're like, yeah, more people would buy houses. I'm like, wrong. Prices would go up. Because that's why 21 and 22 happened. Because interest rates were so low, everybody was buying, which increased demand. Supply was already low. And if you remember back to Econ 101, when demand outweighs supply, prices go up. When demand outweighs supply by a lot, prices go up a lot. And their only other ways to compete besides price are waiving things. Correct. Lynn Ann said, always want to create a sense of urgency because home prices are raising way more than interest rates are going down. Correct. This time last year, rates were 8%. And every expert said they were going to be under 6% by the end of 2024. Well, guess what? They weren't. Then at the start of this year, they said, we'll be under 6% by the middle of 2025. We weren't. Now they're saying by the end of 2025, we should be under 6%. Maybe. We flirted with it, but it was down for 2 weeks and then went right back up. You cannot control the interest rate. However, prices went up about 5% last year. And they're on pace to go up about 3.5% to 4% this year in most areas. In a lot of areas, they're up like 10%. That is going to impact your payment way more, and it's going to continue on that trend than interest rates are. Not to mention, and I know you guys know this, but this is how you should be educating your content or your market. If you buy now at today's price, you lock that in. When the rate goes down in the future, you can refinance. You can also refinance to a lower rate, and you'll take advantage of that price growth, meaning that will become automatic equity. So you buy a house at $1 million today at 6%, and in 2 years, rates drop to 5%, and your house is worth 1.2. You've built up $200,000 of equity. You're putting that in your pocket when you refinance. If you wait for interest rates to drop to 5% and then buy, you're buying it at 1.2. Yeah, you're getting 5% interest, but you're spending an extra $200,000 for the same house. So we want to take advantage of that, and we want to educate our clients. All right, let's talk video. Great videos have great hooks. If you watch so let me pull this up so this makes more sense. On my YouTube channel, I color code my videos. So if it's blue, with an exception of the giveaway, but if it's blue, it'll say top agent training. That's a recording like what we're on today. If it's light blue or red or green, it's something related to content or something like this. It'll say buying versus renting. There'll be different colors. And then I also have yellow, which is like recruiting. But if you watch these videos, the very start of it is some sort of catchy hook. So buying versus renting. That's starting from like 10 seconds in for some reason. 5 reasons to leave DC. This is one of my higher performing videos. No, it's not. Where's the one that I was looking for? On Instagram, that's what it was. On Instagram, one of these went kind of viral. And it said something like the hook is like, are you sick of the hustle and bustle of DC? Well, here's 5 reasons why people are leaving DC to move to Richmond. Now, this also got shared with our sister market centers in the Northern Virginia bubble because I was like, hey, if somebody's selling a house down there and moving to Richmond, I want you to refer it to me. There's other ones in here. But you can go watch these videos and listen for a catchy hook. I'm not going to just dive into a video and start talking. The first sentence out of my mouth is going to be something to catch attention. Do you want to buy a house but you're not sure where to start? Here's the top 3 things first-time homebuyers should know. And I give lists. That is an AI trick, but it is very powerful to say, here's 3, here's 5, here's 7 reasons to blank. 3, 5, and 7 seem to be the kickers. I like 3 and 5 because it makes for shorter videos, and I don't like to give 7 reasons. That's a lie. Now, if your video is less than 90 seconds on YouTube, it's going to move to what's called a short. If it's 2 minutes or longer, which I know leaves a gap, but it's going to automatically become a long form video, which we're going to talk about here in a second. Wrong one. Social algorithms. So all of those different sites, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, videos generate 1,200% more shares than text and image posts. I forget the source of this. It was listingleads.com, which is a Tom Ferry website, but I forget where they got the stat from. But 1,200% is a lot more. If you were able to take Rachel's Beat the Algorithm course, Rachel Adams, a few months ago, she talked a lot about making reels on Instagram because those short form videos generate a lot of attention. Now, AI and ChatGPT are becoming more and more prevalent in our world. You can go to ChatGPT and say, give me a script for the top 3 reasons people are moving from Washington, D.C. to Richmond, Virginia, and it'll give it to you. And then you can say, make this in a friendly yet professional educational voice or tone, and it'll give it to you. You not only then have a script, you can also use that as your description for your videos. The more specific your prompt is to ChatGPT, the more accurate your responses from them will be. And it'll even prompt you back. It'll say like, is this video for YouTube, or would you like one more applicable to like an Instagram reel? Now, I mentioned this earlier. YouTube is responsible for 12.5% of all TV/screen viewing, according to Nielsen's latest report, which 12.5% doesn't seem like that much. But when you think about the number of televisions being watched, it is a lot. And then again, it's auto-popular on Google, etc. Let's talk types of videos real quick. Most of what you will see is short form content. That's under 90 seconds. That's going to be your Instagram reels, your TikTok videos, etc. Yeah, what you got, Lynn Ann?
ChatGPT can also give you like social media ideas. So you can put in the ChatGPT and say, give me 100 ideas for this kind of social media. And so I'm only like, I've only used 10 of my 100. So yeah.
Exactly right. It can also give you video ideas. It can give you descriptions. It can give you, here we go. So this was from ChatGPT. This was like 100, and I've been narrowing them down. But they're YouTube video ideas, and these are the titles that I would use. These are also the hooks. So kind of to your chat comment a second ago, your hook should be different. Your close can be you establishing your name and what you can do, but your hook should be relevant to each video, which will help you with engagement. So your hook would be, here's what I'm talking about today. So for example, here's what they're not telling you about selling in this market. And then you would give responses. Or here's how you can get the highest offer for your home, proven strategies that you need to know, or 3 proven strategies you need to know. And then at the end, you would say, thanks, I'm Lynn Ann with Keller Williams. I'm here to help you with any real estate needs. Or like mine is signing off, your Really Richmond Realtor. Reach out for anything you need. We want to be your Richmond real estate resource of choice, which is a lot of R's, but it's fun to say. You got another question?
Yeah, so can I start off with the same phrase and then add the hook for
I would do
the
the hook first.
actual?
Do the hook
Huh?
first. You catch them in the first 15 seconds of the video. So the hook should be first. Yeah, if the hook isn't first, people are going to log off. And this is
Okay,
from other
but if they're like signing in to see where I'm dancing with 2 left feet into your presence by the magic of the internet, and this is what I'm going to talk about today.
I would still do a hook regarding what the video is about.
Okay.
This is how people say to get more engagement. The other thing is too, is you don't need to introduce yourself on your video. They already know who you are, especially if you're posting it on social media. They're on your social media. So they know it's you when they see it's you. So for example, I won't say like, hey, it's Austin coming at you with another Richmond market update. They're like, we know it's Austin. We see it's you. We know who you are. So you can close with that because you can say, contact me at austin@edenpropertiesva.com. Or you can say, this is Lynn Ann coming at you with another video, dancing with 2 left feet. So they can resonate that brand. But I would open with, what are we talking about today? That's also going to keep people on the video that are interested in hearing that content, which is important for you for views and feedback. So for example, if I'm talking about how to sell your home for top dollar in Richmond, and I'm giving you 3 tips to improve your home's value, if they're not interested in selling a house, or they don't own a house, they're not going to watch the video. But that helps me because I don't want them to watch a video if they don't own a house. So if we come out the gate introducing that, they're going to stay longer, which is the whole point. So short form content's typically the best. It can also be rinse and repeat or reused on these different websites. So for example, a reel on Instagram makes a short on YouTube. Now, this would be things like lists of less than 3, or like 1 tip or 1 trick. So it would be a 1 tip to getting pre-approved faster, or Here's how to define your budget in when you're searching for a home in real estate. Or here's the number one improvement you can do to fixing up your house before you sell. I had a video about that. It was a short, but it was, do you know the number one ROI when it comes to prepping your house to sell? Can anybody guess what it is? I'll give you a
Ask
hint.
again.
So what's the number one ROI or return on investment that you can make to fixing up your house to sell it? What's get the best like return on investment or the best bang for your buck or impact on selling a house?
Send them to Highfield Painting.
It is paint. Yes, correct. Painting is the number one ROI. That was going to be my hint. Was my brother owns a company. Now that was intentional for him. That is part of why he started painting. He started a painting company because he knew it was a needed service in Richmond. And now they do other things besides painting. They do drywall repair and power washing and all the stuff. But their main value add is painting. It happens to be that his older brother and his dad own real estate companies. So there's a pretty good source of business. Not to mention, between the two of us, we do about 150 listings a year. So there's 150 sellers that should be calling him. Now, he's not going to get all of them, but he gets a lot of them. And then he also gets clients that are looking to paint stuff that aren't moving. So there's his book of business right there by creating a company that provides a value that I can then turn into content by saying the number one return on investment for selling your house is paint. And people always like to argue that with me. They're like, there's no way paint's the number one ROI. And I'm like, it is. The reason why is a couple of things. A, paint showcases a house better than most things, with an exception of maybe lighting and flooring. But a good paint versus a bad paint, you can tell the difference, and it's going to create a different buyer perception. The other reason is the emphasis is on return on investment. Paint is not as expensive. Like, yes, completely gutting and redoing the kitchen will probably have a bigger impact as far as a higher sales price, but it also costs a lot more. So if you're spending 50 grand on a kitchen and getting 60,000 more in your sales price, you're not really making that much of an ROI. Versus if you spend $4,000 on paint and get $30,000 increase in sales price, that's a better ROI. Things without video. Some of the best performing videos on my YouTube playlist are now this is one of my favorite ones. This was where I told a story. The A in Zillow stands for accuracy. That's joking intentionally. But we told a story about how two different sellers met with me to sell their house. Their estimate was X price, and we sold it for a lot more than that. That is the number one performing video on my YouTube channel. It has 317 views. Some of these walkthroughs have 216. This one has 156 selling and buying. If you go to my longer form videos, the views are much lower, 23, 12, 18, 26. But I have a lot of content. 31. Although that's all you guys. 33. So the productivity coaching ones are being watched more than anything. Now, YouTube looks at two things to determine who they share as far as traffic is concerned. They look at time on platform, meaning how long are your collective videos combined, and how long are people watching your videos. So if I have a 10-minute video and everybody's turning it off by 1 minute in, YouTube's going to be like, something's up with this dude. His content's not very good. Versus if I have a 3-minute video and people are staying on it for the full 3 minutes, YouTube's going to go, okay, the video's not as long, but people are staying and watching it. That's good. Long form educational content is pretty much 3 minutes or longer. You can also do hyperlocal spotlights. These are like highlighting businesses or events. If I did a video about Red Day or what Red Day is, that's a hyperlocal spotlight. You can also do things like go into a restaurant or a coffee house and interview the manager. Obviously, get permission and set it up ahead of time, but that's a spotlight or a highlight of a local business. And you can do the same thing with vendors. Sit down with one of your vendors and ask them about how they like to help your businesses grow. And then storytelling we've talked about. All right, going to move a little quicker here because I want to finish in time. Friday, the last one, is what's happening in the market or what's happening in your area. These are things that are going on. They can be related to real estate. They don't have to be, but a lot of times they are. These are where you would share upcoming open houses, new listings, events and happenings going on. So if there's a neighborhood event or a flying squirrels game, funny sightings on showings. This is kind of a game that I play. I shared one yesterday of a horrendous bathroom that I was in and said, you can't believe what you're going to see in Richmond. It was a bathroom straight out of the 70s that hadn't been touched. So you can do funny sightings on showings, especially if you can set a theme around it. So like bathrooms in Richmond has kind of become my theme, where I'll just share bathrooms. Some I like, some I don't like. And I'll just continue to share those over and over again. Property videos, listing tours, storytelling, showcase your listings and your expertise. I like showing I call it show your work. I like when I'm at work and I'm doing a video or a quick little post about it. So I'm sitting out front of the house for a home inspection, or I'm in my car while it's pouring rain and I'm debating whether I really want to show this house or not. Like funny things like that will show your work and show a little bit more of what you do and value behind that. And it's important to recognize and to take advantage of that. The bathroom guy as opposed to the bread man. That's funny, Lynn Ann. So, all right, couple more things. There are indirect posts or direct messages, and then there's direct messages. Now, this is related to real estate. So, for example, an indirect would be something that's not necessarily bringing up real estate, but could lead to it. This is your generic, we haven't spoken in a while, I'd love to get coffee and catch up. This is typically how I like to book appointments with SOI or with people in our database that we want to build a relationship with. Then there are generate responses directly related to real estate. This would be like a MOFR or a poll. So a poll about real estate, and then we're responding and engaging them accordingly. And then last but not least, this is important, and I want to give you as your takeaway. I've changed this up a few times over the years. The one that I'm doing that I like the most right now is a 5-5-5 daily commitment. It used to be a 10-5-1. I like 5-5-5 better because it's working better. You're trying to add new people, whether it's a follow or an ad, 5 a day. That's a lot, but that's the goal. 5 direct messages and 5 comments on other people's content. If you can do that every single day, you're going to start getting business from real estate. And then lastly, what do you think of when you think of me as a solid post that you can use to start building your brand in real estate? Then you want to take that and try to define your brand to match what responses you're getting. So for example, when I posted this post back in the fall, a lot of people talked about me being a coach or educating or friendly or connector, has vendors when needed, that kind of thing. So that's how I build my brand. Now, it's not to say that Eden Properties is defined by that. And yet all of my content mirrors I'm giving value, I'm educating, I'm coaching, I'm sharing. And that's what it resonates with my folks. So there's some synchrony there. At the same time, you may have the opposite. Like, what do I not want to be known as? I don't want to be known as the guy that just brags about how many sales he has. You can also use other brands to use this as your own example. So what do you think of when you think of Nike as a brand, or when you think of Keller Williams as a brand? And so start brainstorming those. So that's going to be your homework between now and tomorrow, is to start working on your personal brand. And then tomorrow we're going to start building out some of our social media profiles and our realtor and Zillow.com profiles while we're in person. We'll do a little bit of lead gen, and then we'll answer any questions you may have. Lynn Ann, are you able to make it tomorrow? You're muted.
Yes, and I'm sending you an email with my question because I know that
Perfect.
you have to go.
Yeah, perfect. That's what I was going to say next. So I'll get it back to you, and then that way, if we need to talk more in detail, we can tomorrow.
Perfect, great.
All righty. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I apologize for going a few minutes over, and I will see you tomorrow.
Have a great appointment.
Bye-bye. Thank you.